Hello and welcome. The following is a presentation for a research proposal exploring the acceptance of technology throughout the sales and customer service teams at Hind Timber. The following presentation will provide an overview of the following aspects of the proposed research. To begin with, the presentation will look at the main points and facets of Hind Timber. This will entail a brief overview of the organisation, the industry it operates within, and the business units and the other important characteristics of the firm, including workforce size, turnover, and the connection of the researcher to the organisation. From there, the presentation will provide a high-level overview of the research problem. Following on from the problem overview, the presentation will provide a succinct summary of the existing literature that has previously investigated this problem. Then the presentation will briefly go through the research questions that this research will aim to answer. The presentation will then provide an overview of the research design for the project. This overview will include an explanation of the sample, methods, and tools that were utilised in this research. To conclude with, this presentation will explain how the research project will adhere to the ethical considerations throughout the entire process. So without further ado, this presentation will proceed. As mentioned, the industry partner for this research project is an organisation known as Hind Timber. So who is Hind Timber and what do they do? To begin with, Hind Timber is a privately owned company that can trace its origins back to the late 1800s. The core business of Hind Timber is the manufacturing and supplying of structural softwood products that are used for the construction of domestic housing predominantly throughout the eastern states of Australia. Hind Timber operates and trades throughout many domestic markets on the eastern seaboard of Australia, spanning from Cairns to Melbourne, and all places in between. The company employs approximately 600 employees across all its operations, ranging from its manufacturing, sales, and distribution and supporting roles. The company's annual turnover for the past several financial years have averaged between 350 million to 375 million per annum. The researcher of this project has been associated with the company for approximately 17 years, holding various roles throughout this time. The researcher currently holds the position of Regional Sales Manager of Victoria. Next, the presentation will provide an overview of the research problem. Like many businesses, the use of technology is commonplace throughout Hind Timber. Technology has become an integral part of the organisation, particularly in the sales and customer service areas of the business. Over the course of the past several years, in particular in the last 12 months, new technology has been introduced and rolled out across the sales and customer service teams. The technology that has been rolled out includes new hardware, smartphones, laptops, and the like, and operating software programs, Office 365, video conferencing, and new customer relationship management software, CRM software. Through all these changes, it is now important to understand the levels of acceptance of these new technologies across the sales and customer service teams. The aim of this research project is to identify the barriers that may be inhibiting the acceptance of new technology across the sales and customer service teams of Hind Timber. By identifying these barriers, this project will aim to provide necessary recommendations to the organisation that could be implemented to assist with the increasing acceptance of technology throughout these teams. The project also envisages that these recommendations will assist the organisation in developing competitive advantages over its competitors in the way that it can service and sell to its customers. When looking into this problem, it was discovered that there is already a vast amount of literature covering this area around technology acceptance. Next, the presentation will give a brief overview of the literature that has been discovered so far surrounding this problem area. The presentation will discuss the theory that was discovered. Then it will briefly identify the independent factors that could be impacting on the acceptance of technology throughout the sales and customer service teams at Hind Timber. Also, a brief overview of the literature that was discovered on each of these factors will be covered off in each relevant section. This will all be summarised through an overview of the conceptual map central to this research project. The technology acceptance model. To begin with, it was discovered that there are theories of significance surrounding the area of technology acceptance. The first theory in this area that rose to prominence was the technology acceptance theory, known as TAM, which was developed by Davis. The TAM theory, developed by Davis, discovered technology use and acceptance is dependent on two factors: the perceived usefulness of technology and the perceived ease of use of that technology. Perceived usefulness is an interesting concept because, as defined by Davis, perceived usefulness is the degree to which a person believes that using a particular system will enhance his or her job performance. If the user believes that that technology is useful, they are more likely to accept it. And also, as defined by Davis, a person is more likely to accept technology if doing so requires little or no effort from them. The technology acceptance model 2. From the TAM theory, Venkatesh and Davis expanded on Davis's work, and they developed the technology acceptance model 2, known as TAM2. Venkatesh and Davis expanded the theory by collecting longitudinal data across 4 different organizations. In addition to the two pre-existing factors that Davis discovered, perceived usefulness and perceived ease of use, Venkatesh and Davis discovered several more factors that affected technology acceptance. The additional factors that Venkatesh and Davis discovered were divided into social influence process, which are subjective norm, voluntariness and image, and cognitive instrumental processes being job relevance, output quality, result demonstrability, and perceived ease of use. Next, the presentation will briefly touch on some of the literature covering ease of use. As discovered by Davis, if using technology does not require effort from the user, there is a direct correlation with the acceptance of that technology. Davis's discovery was reaffirmed by Rangaranjan, Jones, and Chin when they discovered that more complicated the technology is, the lower the usage rate will be across users. Following on from his earlier work, Davis later discovered that if users believe that technology is easy to use, they will believe that it's more useful for them to use as well. Next, the presentation will discuss the literature surrounding usefulness. In contrast to where Davis discovered that if technology is easy to use, it will have a direct effect on the usefulness of that technology. Usefulness of technology does not directly affect the technology's ease of use. A piece of technology may be used for what it's intended, for its intended application, but if it's not easy to use, the usefulness of that technology will not affect the ease of its use. However, despite these discoveries by Davis, Lee and Gofflin did discover through their study that adoption rates of technology will be higher when the perception of that technology usefulness coupled with its potential benefits are amplified. The presentation will now briefly touch on the literature surrounding social influences. In a workplace setting, social influences, mainly in the form of peer or co-worker influences, are significant. As succinctly stated by Holmberg, Wisk, and Keneal, adoption behaviour does not occur in a vacuum, but rather takes place in the social environment. A statement such as this is relevant, particularly when looking into how technology is accepted in a workplace setting. Lee and Gofflin and Weinstein and Mullins both discovered that technology acceptance will depend significantly on the support that team members will provide to one another. The support provided to one another across teams can include the sharing experiences, the bouncing of ideas, and the discussing of that technology, which Lagat, Nagua, and Bunicki discovered through their studies. Finally, the presentation will address the literature surrounding training and support. As Buer, Senecal, and Bowman, Pullmans, and Robinson, Marshall, and Stamps discovered, technology will be accepted by users if they are provided with support services. These support services can include training sessions, helplines, online tutorials, and on-demand training sessions. To follow on this from this point, Rangaranjan, Jones, and Chin discovered that leaders and managers can play a pivotal role in technology acceptance by providing adequate resources to the users of that technology. These adequate resources can include training support, and as discovered by Holmberg, Wisk, and Knill, and Rangaranjan, Jones, and Chin, an increase in training and support tends to lead to an increase in user acceptance of technology. Another point of interest that was discovered in this area was the work completed by Lee and Gofflin. Lee and Gofflin discovered that the more support that was provided to the senior members of the teams, the higher the acceptance rates across that group would be. To conclude the literature review section of this presentation, this is the conceptual map illustrating the independent factors that could impact upon the dependent factor. Next, we'll discuss the research questions that this research project will aim to explore and answer. So the two research questions that this research project will aim to answer are, what are the factors that are inhibiting the technology acceptance throughout the sales and customer service teams of Hine Timber? And how can these factors be overcome so that it results in an increase of technology acceptance throughout the sales and customer service teams of Hine Timber? The research project will be designed using the following framework. Due to the inherent nature of the two research questions, one being quantitative and the other being qualitative in nature, the project will employ a mixed method approach. As highlighted, there is extant literature surrounding this problem, but this project aims to test the identified factors in this setting. The sample size for this project is less than 100 due to the fact that there's approximately 15 members in the sales team and approximately 10 in the customer service team, therefore providing the project with approximately 25 participants to draw upon from. Due to the small sample size, the invitation to participate in this project will be extended to all members of the sales and customer service teams. Therefore, the project will be utilising a probability method for the sampling. All the contact details of all members of the teams are available and accessible through the internal directory of the organisation. And all participants will be contacted by email. The project will be developing a descriptive survey that will be sent to all participants. The quantitative questions will be measured using the Likert scale, as displayed on the screen. Where the research project aims to seek further information, qualitative open-ended questions will be utilised. The following slides will display the first version of the descriptive survey that has been developed to be sent to the participants. Finally, in regard to ethical considerations, the researcher of this project understands how critical it is to maintain and uphold all ethics surrounding research at all times. As mentioned, all members of all teams will be invited to participate and their participation will be voluntary. All responses from the members and the data collected will be kept confidential at all times. Participating in the research will also be done anonymously by all participants. And the full disclosure of this project will be provided to all members before participating in this project. Before concluding, the researcher of this project would like to extend the invitation for comments, reviews, and suggestions on how to improve this proposed research project before proceeding. That concludes the presentation of the proposal for this research project.